the thing if you're Maryland is you're looking at Buzz and his track record and saying he's going to be the guy that's going to keep us in contention.
Seth Emerson is covering the Buzz Williams news for The Athletic. He's a senior writer for them covering college athletics. Seth joins us now. Seth, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it.
No problem.
So we had Jeff Erman, who is a Maryland insider, on with us yesterday, Seth. And
right.
he was like, here's a bunch of names, like Buzz Williams kind of floating out there, but I really don't know about that and how real that is. And then here we are today. They've hired Buzz Williams as the coach. So how quickly did this move, and how did we get this to where Buzz was signing on with the Terps?
Well, it obviously moved really quickly because they knew that Kevin Willard was probably leaving. It's surprisingly quickly when you don't have a sitting athletic director doing it. So it's on the face of it, it's a good thing. You hired away an SEC coach, a guy that just went to the tournament this year. But you kind of wonder, did they just go for the big name? Buzz Williams was interested. We've got to hire him. Did not having an athletic director in place hurt them? Did they not have the ability or the wherewithal or the desire to go find, the next Todd Golden or someone like that? But Buzz Williams is a solid hire, and he's a name, and he probably kind of restores some of the luster to Maryland in the industry here, because obviously they were very, not in a good shape, losing your athletic director to SMU, losing your basketball coach to Villanova, but then to be able to go pull Buzz Williams, who has been successful. He's not ever been to a Final Four. He's only been to one Elite Eight, and that was at Marquette 12 years ago. But to be able to pull him is a good pick-me-up for Maryland.
So was there any signs with Buzz, because I know you've spent a lot of time covering the SEC over the years, like if Buzz doesn't take this job, is he going somewhere else? Like, his time expired? Had his time expired at Texas A&M, or is this just an opportunity that he's like, no, I'm really interested in that. Maryland's a school that theoretically is going to put basketball first in a way that all the other schools that he's coached at since Marquette will not. Like, what's kind of the exit story on Buzz, and then we can focus even more on the entrance part of this.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't Maryland, it would probably be a place like that, if not this cycle, then the next one. I mean, look, this is the second time Texas A&M has lost a basketball coach to Maryland. And obviously this time under different circumstances, and Maryland's in a different place. But, Buzz had, he'd probably reached his ceiling there. But also it's Texas A&M. It's going to be a football-first school. Buzz has been at Virginia Tech, which was, it's football first, but it's ACC, so he kind of had a taste of it. And, he definitely was at a basketball-first school because they don't even have football at Marquette. And so, he clearly wanted to get to a place that was going to prioritize basketball, which is kind of interesting. And it's another reason that this is kind of a good thing for Maryland's reputation, at least, getting off the mat after the Willard thing, because has Williams been told by whoever is running the show there now, presumably the president and whoever he has as interim athletic director, has he been told, yes, you will be able to compete in NIL, because that's one of the reasons that Kevin Willard left. So that's a good sign. I don't think Buzz Williams was fleeing, but he probably had reached his ceiling there. And, the SEC's been really tough, too, and it's not getting less tough over the next year or two. So I think he saw this as a good exit strategy.
Seth Emerson from The Athletic is with us here on The Hoffman Show, senior writer covering college athletics, covering this Buzz Williams to Maryland story. Buzz is a pretty unique guy in a lot of ways, Seth, as I'm sure you well know, both on and off the court. On the court, the style that he coaches, the kind of players that he recruits, how does that fit in the modern basketball landscape?
Well, the criticism of him is that he's a little bit kind of old school. As kind of colorful as he is on the court, he's a little bit more kind of, I heard that a criticism of him is that Texas A&M kind of played a boring brand this year, not as much as a three-point shooting team. Now, how much of that is adapting to your personnel? And it was still good enough in a very tough SEC to win enough to get to the NCAAs and win a game there. But it's going to be interesting to see how that translates. I know that Maryland isn't one of those places that is going to be wedded to a certain style of ball. If they could bring Tony Bennett out of retirement and win games 45-40, they would. If you're going to get, bring back the Paul Westhead, George Mason days and, win 140-135, they'll do that too. But the question is going to be the player procurement, which is what everything is here. And obviously you're expecting to lose Derek Queen. And I think one of the other reasons that Maryland moved so quickly here was because of the transfer portal, because it's already open, and not to have a long drawn out search where their new coach is already behind the eight ball because he got here so late. Now, some might say that's kind of too much of a short-term strategy. You want to hire someone that can do well over the long term, and one portal cycle doesn't matter. And I think there's an argument for that. But the other counter to that is, well, the transfer portal isn't just 1 year. Like, you can get guys in here now that will be here for the next 2 years, 3 years. Plus, you also are building a base for going forward. It's probably going to be important for Maryland to have a good year, not necessarily have to make the tournament or bust, but to show that that they're not going anywhere. On the other hand, Buzz does have a reputation for being a program builder. First year at Virginia Tech wasn't good. First year at Texas A&M wasn't good, and then year 3, year 4, they get going. So, what the patience is of Maryland fans, we'll see. Buzz has taken over programs that were below what Maryland is now. Maryland just went to the Sweet 16. I think, fans aren't going to be demanding to go back to the Sweet 16 right away, but they certainly don't want this team to fall off a lot.
For sure. And the thing, it's worth pointing out in those early struggles, those were pre-NIL, pre-current transfer rules too. So the quick flips were harder then than they are now. But then again, everybody's quick flipping every year. So it's just a totally different environment. The other thing that I think is interesting about Buzz is he was basically described to me by someone who knows him pretty well today as almost like a starter pack, self-contained kind of coach, where the fact that Maryland currently doesn't have an AD, for instance, doesn't really matter to Buzz. Like, he's going to be Buzz Williams no matter who's in charge, who his boss is, whatever else. He's got his own people. He'll come in and off he'll go. He'll hit the ground running. Do you think in that way that it was appealing maybe for Maryland right now, that as opposed to hiring someone who's coming from a mid-major or even a low major that would have to adjust to life in the big time, in the Big Ten, without an AD for some amount of time, that they can just go this route where someone who's more self-contained? Was that a feature, if you will, even if, maybe later if he doesn't get along with the AD, it might present itself like a bug?
Yeah, I think that's probably a consideration. I think even more so, you're looking at a place when they don't have an AD. It's going to make it probably a little bit more attractive to the incoming AD that you have an established men's basketball coach. Because let's be honest, there's whoever is coming into the AD knows that he may be having a football decision to make next year. They want someone that they can kind of count on in men's basketball. And Buzz has the track record there that it really isn't a question. When you look at his track record, when he's done it 3 different places, in Marquette, Virginia Tech, and Texas A&M, it's kind of the old Gary Williams debate pre-Final Four 2001. Buzz is going to get them to tournaments, probably, you'd figure, and in contention. It's going to be eventually in 4 or 5 years whether he takes them further, whether he has a ceiling. And I remember that debate being around then over whether Gary, whether he had a ceiling of the Sweet 16. And then he obviously busted through it in 2001 and then won it all in 2002. And, the thing, if you're Maryland, is you're looking at Buzz and his track record and saying he's going to be the guy that's going to keep us in contention. In a few years, it's going to be a debate whether he has that ceiling. And if you're Buzz Williams, you're telling yourself, I'm only 52 years old. I've won at Marquette, which, basketball first school, but it's not power conference school. I've won at Virginia Tech and I've won at Texas A&M, which are 2 basically football first schools. Definitely Texas A&M, maybe Virginia Tech, get an argument. You go to a place like Maryland for all the debate over NIL and resources and commitment and whatever. Maryland's still a basketball school. And so Buzz, I'm sure, thinks he can win at Maryland, and he can take his ceiling higher than it's been in his career, and that's what you're banking on if you're Maryland.
Seth Emerson, senior writer at The Athletic. Seth, you've been reporting on this story all day, and I'm sure behind the scenes for a couple weeks now, and the various iterations of this from Willard on through. So I will simply ask you on the way out here, anything else we should be thinking about? Anything else we should know from the Maryland side, from the Buzz Williams side that we haven't talked about yet, but is on the top of your mind as you wrap up your reporting on the Maryland coaching saga?
Well, I think, and mainly, my day job is covering the SEC as a whole. But the thing that's been interesting to me is I've been also dealing with and covering a lot of these issues going forward with the House settlement, NIL, and revenue sharing and whatever is whether the Willard move does signify a shift to where the schools that don't have to prioritize and give up so much in revenue sharing to football are going to be in an advantage. This is a, similar move. This is SEC to Big Ten. Those two conferences are simpatico. They're on the same wavelength. So that's not a factor, but that's the thing to watch going forward is how much does this all have an effect? I've been somebody who has really thought that basketball is kind of in danger of being lost here and that football is the king. But I think basketball is getting a little bit of a renaissance here. And I think the question for Maryland is whether they're going to open up the pocketbooks, I think they're probably going to get if they're doing what most other schools are doing, the rev share is going to go mostly to football. The question is whether the basketball donors will step up. And that's the thing to watch going forward is, Kevin Plank's more of a football guy, but does he do it towards basketball? Just name your average Maryland basketball donor. How much of those wallets can open up? And that's going to be a question at so many places going forward. As an alum, it's not going to be me. I can't afford to donate to Maryland basketball, but I'll do it to the journalism school. But I'm really curious to see what is going to happen with the money people.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fascinating. Well, Seth, if you have money to donate even to the journalism school, I think you're doing quite well for yourself because when Syracuse comes calling for me and for Anthony, my producer over there, we're like, our hands are empty. Quit calling us. We're still paying you back from when we were there. So you relax over there.
I'm
Syracuse.
Speaking with empty words there. I do not. I am not donating that money.
We'll happily hop on a Zoom in a journalism class.
I'll do that.
Give us a call. Respective universities. Frankly, I do it for Maryland too. So if any Terps folks are listening, Seth and I are both available. Shoot, we'll even do it together, even though we met 15 minutes ago on this phone call. Seth, this was great. Really appreciate everything you're doing in terms of the reporting on this. It's great to read everything that you wrote on it, and I really appreciate your time and perspective here on the radio.
All right. Thanks a lot. Anytime.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.